it couldn't be in a more important area, right? Like we gotta get this right. Like we gotta know what the right way is to communicate about climate change so we can move the needle on collective action in the US and globally. We're interested in the problem of climate change communication. Like, what are the most effective ways to talk about climate change to foster a sense of urgency about this pressing problem? And what we're trying to do is conduct what's called a mega study, where we test the most cited, the most impactful strategies for how to effectively talk about climate change against one another in a sort of a tournament to see which of these strategies is the best, the most effective for getting people to care more about this issue.
And it's actually kind of interesting because, Rob, your PhD is in sociology, but I've always thought of you more as like a psychologist and a public opinion scholar. And then, I'm in a business school, but I'm kind of view myself a little bit more of like a public opinion scholar as well.
I do too.
But I think it's important that we have these disciplinary bases that are different than public opinion. And I think that actually is good that we have these outsider perspectives that I think kind of create the distance to see if this stuff is actually true. But I think the main challenge we had when we worked on this project was, is the point going to be to find what is the absolute optimal message? Or is it to evaluate the robustness of existing messages that the literature has claimed are true?
I do like that we landed on essentially auditing the published literature on climate change messaging. What are the most impactful, influential strategies of talking to people about climate change? Do those strategies replicate, when you test them in a large experiment with representative samples and you give them a chance to successfully persuade people to care more about climate change, to believe in climate change more? Do they work or do they not work?
The one thing that I've always never been that good at, but you're really good at, is actually running an empire. You kind of do all these big lab projects, you kind of bring resources together, and I think to really investigate tough open science questions, like you've done on many issues besides climate change, is to actually build the infrastructure to kind of do these tournaments. So I think that was like a really good meeting of the minds.
I think we're quite open to not finding that psychological techniques or political psychological techniques are that helpful, for changing public opinion on climate change. Like, if that's what we found, we would publish that and be fine with publishing it, because I'm totally fine with this space that I've been in being, less important in the, the larger collective, multidisciplinary, multinational effort to fight climate change. Like, if we should be dedicating our energies someplace else, I'll be the first one to say, let's go do it, and I know you would too.
I think a lot of these initial projects that people did over the last 15 years were to generate ideas, and that's never a bad thing. And it's our job, I think, to say, okay, like, which of these seeds are gonna sprout? But if nobody did any of this work over the last 15 years, we would have no project. So I want to really just make sure that we keep positive about this, to say, this is how science works, is that we have people who generate ideas that tested them, we replicate them and bring them together in this holistic view, and we actually get learning at the end of the day.